In Conversation with Terry Shepard, award-winning broadcaster, narrator, and author. A deep dive into the writer's craft with the artists and support systems who create the stories we love.
Thanks, Lisa. Today we meet Victor Methos, a celebrated attorney and author of thrillers like the Harper Lee Prize winner, The Hallows, and the Edgar-nominated Gambler's Jury. He has a brand new novel, The Silent Watcher, which premiered on December 1st. He graduated from the University of Utah Law School and began his career as a criminal prosecutor in Salt Lake City before founding Utah's top criminal defense firm. Over a decade, he handled more than 100 trials, with one inspiring his bestseller, The Neon Lawyer. He currently lives in southern Utah. Victor, take us behind the curtain of The Silent Watcher.
So when I was a defense attorney, I felt like I defend the Constitution. The Constitution was always this is such a nerdy thing to say, but sometimes it'll just catch me. I'll be like staring off at a distance and something from the Constitution will just catch me. And I'll be like, how did they come up with this? Like, it is the pinnacle of human thought. Like, it is amazing to me what they did. And so I defended everybody, because rapists, I defended some serial killers, whatever. The one type of offender I did not defend were stalkers, because we did defend them at first when we first opened our firm. And those were the only ones that really legitimately frightened us, because there's this disconnect. Like, a drug dealer knows why he's being arrested. He's not pissed at the government. He's like, how dare they arrest me for selling cocaine? He knows. But a stalker's like, Matt, you can't show up at her house at midnight and surprise her when she walks through the door. It's like, why not? I love her. Like, you can't really talk to them. And so they always scared me. And then I was watching TV and this documentary came on. There's 6 types of psychological stalkers. This documentary came on about a new type they found, a 7th type called a frogger. And so a frogger is a stalker that doesn't feel like watching from afar is enough. So they'll do things like move into this person's house. And so they interviewed this lady, and she said she was lying back on her bed and she looked up and there was a hole in her ceiling, and she realized there was an eye in the hole looking down at her. And so she called the cops, and they found this guy that had been living in her house for 3 weeks, this homeless guy that had just been watching her and like eating her food and stuff. And that stuck with me. It is such a violation of personal space that is just horrifying. So I'm like, I got to write that. I'm like, what if he also decides to kill them at the end? And so that became the genesis of Silent Watcher.
How did you develop your female protagonist?
The guardian ad litems, they were really interesting. By the way, for your listeners who end up reading the book, I went total CSI on the guardian ad litem profession. Okay, so don't become a guardian ad litem and then email me and be like, this is boring, grinding work. What are you talking about? There's no chases. I don't carry a gun. But like CSI did that. CSI, the forensic people are some of the most boring jobs I've ever seen. It is just like data and cataloging. And in CSI, they're like superheroes. So I'm like, screw it. If they can do it, I can do it. So I made her job really exciting and interesting. And I wanted someone there that had been through the system to know what these children go through. Because like some of the stories I hear from my friends that are guardians, like you can't imagine what parents do to their kids in some of these divorces. Like my friend who's a guardian the other day he's like, I had a case that made me cry. He's like, I listened to it and I just went and sat down in my office alone and I just cried. And he told me about it. I won't talk about it here, but it's just like, you just can't believe these people have children. Actually, all the guardians I know, none of them had traumatic childhoods. And so I've always wondered is there a disconnect there? Do the kids really relate to them? And so I'm like, what would happen if they did have a really traumatic childhood and they overcame that and they pulled themselves together and then they could represent these kids? And that's who Piper is. She's someone who's been through the shit and she knows what these kids are going through and she can connect with them in a way other people just can't. So I thought that was really fascinating to write for me.
I'm fascinated by the plotting process. How did you build the wireframes around this story?
So Norman Mailer called writing the spooky art because we don't know where the words come from. I'm like that with plots too. I don't actually sit down and I don't plot anything. I don't know how the book's going to end. I don't even know all the characters when I start writing. For me, if I'm not having fun, if it's not interesting and exciting, I'll just stop doing it. And so writing has to stay interesting for me. And if I know the ending before I start, it's not very interesting. Like I already know the story. So I just start writing and then the plot comes out during the rewrites. Mario Puzo said, I don't write, I rewrite. So the plot gets honed much later. I just write whatever shit is in my head, the first draft, and then whatever comes after, I'll fix it. That's my thinking. Like I can fix a full page. I can't fix a blank page.
You won the Harper Lee Award for The Hallows and Edgar-nominated Gambler's Jury. How did you learn the craft?
Trial and error. My first books were total garbage. Like, one of the things I would do, I couldn't get published. Like I couldn't get anybody to publish me. And then in 2009, the Kindle came out. and Amazon allowed you to self-publish. And I had like 50 novels I'd written already, just garbage. So I published them, and then I would change them. I would edit them. I couldn't afford an editor at the time. I would edit them based on the reviews. So like the reviewers at the time was like, oh, this novel's grammar is crap. I'm like, okay, I got to fix grammar. Or like, oh, the scenery didn't make sense. I'm like, I got to read a book on how to write about scenery. And so it was just literally just trial and error, iteration. The first 10 years of my writing life were garbage. Every once in a while, there'd be a little gem, a little line, but it really is just obsession and time. There's chess grandmasters I've seen, because I was into chess for a long time, that could literally walk by a board and say mate in 7. And it's not because they're so much smarter than everybody else. It's because that's their obsession, and that's what they've devoted themselves to. And that's what they think about for 40 years straight. And that's really just what happened. It's not that I have anything unique or special. I've just done this and thought about this and been obsessed about it all my life. So you can't help but get good at it. It's something you love that much.
When did this start? How old were you when you first got your magnificent obsession?
5th grade. Oh gosh, Terry, you're going to make me tell this story. All right. So I will tell you. Okay. So I'm obsessed with Bigfoot. I spent my summers on a ranch in Northern California, my cousin's ranch, my aunt's ranch. And I was 12 years old, 6th grade. And I saw something out in the woods by myself. I don't know how to explain it. I thought about it now for 40 years, 30 years. I'm not that old, but I didn't tell anybody for 20 years what I saw, until my wife. And even then I waited until after we were married, so she couldn't. But I saw a gorilla in the woods. I don't know how else to describe it. There was a gorilla in the woods of Northern California, and people thought I was crazy. This was the 80s. Like, it's not now. Bigfoot's in Slim Jim commercials, and it's like fun and cool. Like in the 80s, people were like, this guy needs medication. He needs to be like institutionalized. And so I really started thinking, like, nobody believed me. I didn't tell anybody. I told my aunt, my cousin, and they didn't believe me. And I was like, well, I'm not telling anybody anymore. Forget it. And so I really, though, started thinking, like, everybody's wrong. All my teachers are wrong. All the scientists are wrong. Everybody is wrong. All the adults are wrong. And I'm right, because I saw this thing and I know it's real. So that really started me on this journey of philosophy. That's how I first got into philosophy. My degree's in philosophy. I actually was working on my PhD in philosophy when I went to law school, because I saw the writing on the wall. I'm like, holy shit, I'm going to starve to death. So I was like, I got to go to law school. We had grad students working at Starbucks. I'm like, nope, can't do it. So I went to law school for that. But it really did start me on this, like, questioning everything journey. And so after that, I wrote my first short story, and it was about me being chased by a Bigfoot. And so the whole plot of the story was, do I run or do I stay and face it? And that's really like every novel I've ever written since. Like, it's just somebody like, do I run or do I face it? I think that's the most interesting dilemma we all have. So there, you got my whole embarrassing life story.
Victor Methos is our guest. The Silent Watcher premiered on December 1st. His website is victormethos.com. As long as we're in those uncomfortable years, what was it that brought you out of that depressive episode?
I saw there's this great chart. I don't know if you remember 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Do you remember that company?
Yeah. Huh?
The founder and the CTO, and they went from one year they were $150 million in profit. The next year they were in debt $2 million. The year after that, they were up $300 million. The year after that, they were $50 million in debt. So the CTO sat down and just traced the arc of what the crap is going on in this company. And he traced it to his pattern of emotional well-being. When he was in his depressive phases, the company suffered. When he got in his up phases, the company started progressing. So he realized, like, okay, I can't make decisions when I'm like this. Like, I make terrible decisions. So when he starts going into this, you have to be really self-aware, obviously. He would take time off. He wouldn't work. He wouldn't make decisions. And then he'd wait until it went up like this. So when I read that, I started applying that, and I started applying that cycle. And just when I get in those depressive phases now, I pull back as much as I can from work and just focus on myself and just try to heal. I go to yoga more. I lift more. I take my dogs on walks more. And I try to make fewer and fewer decisions. And the longer my depression, the longer I do that, and the more I pull back. And that's really helped me. And then when I start seeing myself come back into it, be less numb, I start adding decisions, and I go back, and then I'll hit my peak on that edge. When I'm at my happiest and most productive is when I hit my peak. And so that's been really my key to getting myself out of those, because those depressive phases come for everybody.
What do you think Piper's motivation was to take on the job in The Silent Watcher?
Probably for the same reason I went into defense. She saw someone hurt by the system and no one was there. And then in the book, Piper's guardian ad litem is kind to her. She takes her and shows her has her watch TV, has her drink coffee. And guess who did that, Terry? I'll tell you who did that. Jim Gordon did that to Bruce Wayne in Batman. I'm going to go off on Batman. Batman's my favorite superhero, and I'm in the middle of The Psychology of Batman, which is a fantastic book if any of you guys want to read it. But Bruce Wayne, he can't have relationships, right? And so I've always pondered that, like, why can't Bruce Wayne have relationships, but the Batman can? And it's because Batman is who he is. Bruce Wayne is the costume. And Bruce Wayne died the moment his parents died. And so what the comics, the way they had it is he was deciding at that moment when his parents were dead, who am I going to become? Is he going to become Batman or is he become the Joker? And what tipped him towards Batman is how Jim Gordon treated him. He put his jacket around his shoulders and he took him in and he let him watch TV and gave him a snack and just stayed with him and spent time with him. And that's what I wanted for Piper. I wanted Piper to be like that Jim Gordon.
Who are those people in your life that put their jacket around you at just the right moment?
The first thing that popped into my head was my high school English teacher, Miss Whiting. So I was going to flunk out of high school. I don't know if you know this, Terry, but our education system sucks. If you're a round peg, you're not fitting in that square hole no matter what. So I had like straight D's and F's in high school. And I was put actually in special ed, younger than that. They would put me like in the classes with kids that started fires and stuff like that. I was literally in special ed, and I was reading Aristotle and Nietzsche at 11, 12 years old. But I was like, the red truck goes red when I go out in school. Like it was a total disconnect. Nobody gave a shit. Nobody cared. So it wasn't until high school that I met Miss Whiting, and she loved me because I would write poetry. I'd spend my time writing poetry. And one day she busted me writing poetry in her class. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, just dueling. And she's like, this is some of the best poetry I've read. And she encouraged me to write. So she said, when are you graduating? I'm like, I'm probably not. I'm going to drop out. I'm going to go do something else. And she's like, I'll tell you what, I will talk to your other teachers. You come to my class every day. You can just stay here all day. You can lay down in the back as long as you're reading. As long as you're reading, I'll get you by with the other teachers. And I said, okay. And so I would go, and she introduced me to Shakespeare and to Chaucer and oh man, you got me all emotional, Terry.
Does she know what became of her, Bruce Wayne?
I never got to tell her, but my girlfriend at the time was working at this physical therapy clinic, and she came in and it said Miss Whiting, and she's like, you're not Miss Whiting who used to teach at Granite High School, are you? She's like, I am. She's like, oh my gosh, Victor, blah, blah. And she's like, he's a lawyer now. He's a trial lawyer. He's the senior partner at his firm. And he said she burst into tears and just started crying. So I didn't get to tell her myself, but I'm so glad she found out what kind of an influence she had on me.
Victor Methos is our guest. He wrote The Silent Watcher, which debuted on December 1st. We're talking about books and writing and life. How have you paid that debt forward?
Oh man, I shouldn't say this on air. Any writer that emails me for a favor or something, I try to pay it forward as long as they're not taking advantage. Like I said no to NPR. I turned NPR interview down. I turned Fox News down one time. They wanted me to be on and just yell at me as the anti-gun guy. I said no. But like this little undergrad student emailed me. He's like, excuse me, I have an introductory psychology class, and they asked me to interview a writer, and I don't know any. Would you be willing to be interviewed? And I was like, yeah, sure, of course. So I try to always do stuff like that because I know what it feels like, man. You take that chance and you email somebody, and you're just like, please just don't be a dick when you email me back. Those are my favorite moments as a writer, to just be able to do that. It's like so much funner than getting awards or praise. Way better. Or like I had a vet who actually emailed me from Iraq and is like, I lost my leg. I've been in bed for a week and I've been reading all your novels and it's really taken my mind off things. So thank you. Like that's the stuff that really impacts me. That's the stuff I remember.
So what's next? Will we see Piper again?
Yeah, it'll be a trilogy. I just finished the second book and sent it into the editor. It's more of a love story, so we'll see if people like it. But a really interesting love story. I got obsessed with the Mayans for a while, the ancient Mayans. And so I guess you could call him the antagonist in the book, is obsessed with Mayan ritual, because all religion is just, we call myth fantasy, but myth is just a religion that people don't practice anymore. So I was obsessed with the Mayans for a while. I was like, what if someone still practiced the old religion? What would that look like today? And that's how I came up with this character. So it was really fun to write because I got to research the Mayans a lot, which is a fascinating culture to study. Like they were ahead of us in a lot of ways. Like as far as living in unity with the earth and making sure that we're in step with the cycles of nature and things of that sort. Like they were really in tune with that stuff.
Where did the idea come from to study the Mayans?
I don't know. I'm interested in everything. I read so much. When I don't have something to read on a plane, I'll pull out the stupid little seat thing and emergency thing, and I'll read that. Like I always have to be reading. My therapist said once, It's a trauma response. When I was a kid, she's like, yeah, books were your escape. It's a lot of people's escape. That's totally fine. So maybe it developed as a trauma response and turned into a love. So I just read everything I can get my hands on. I think the book that probably influenced me, nonfiction, the book that influenced me the most is Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. That really changed my mind about everything and opened me up to like, holy shit, everything we know is wrong. It was like one of those other Bigfoot moments. I've had two of those moments. It was Bigfoot and Thinking Fast and Slow where I get everybody's wrong. And so that opened my mind, and I've just started reading everything. I've read a history of oil recently. I've been reading the Iliad. I got a cool book on skylines of American cities that was actually really interesting. It's just pictures of every skyline and a description of all the buildings in the skyline. I thought it was really fascinating because you never know what you're going to use in your fiction. You never know what you're going to end up using.
Victor, what a great conversation. I've had a blast.
Me too. I never get to talk to anybody about books, Terry. Everybody around here is into other stuff. So
the book is The Silent Watcher, written by our special guest, Victor Methos. You can learn more about him at victormethos.com. And you can find The Silent Watcher wherever cool books are sold. Victor, thanks for the conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
No, me too. Thank you for having me on. I'm happy to come back anytime, man.
In Conversation with Terry Shepard is a copyrighted presentation. All rights reserved. I'm Lisa Davis. Join Terry Shepard next time in Conversation.